Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm so happy to have back on again Marc Ambrosia. He's got a brand new record out. It is called Gay and Proud, and I'm super excited to talk to him all about it. Mark, thank you for making your way back here. How are you? What's going on?
I'm so well, thank you so much. So well, and life out of the closet is very much worth living.
Yes, I fully agree. Listen, man, before we started recording, I was giving you the props for this record, but truly, like, even putting the message aside, which we'll get to in a second, it's just catchy. Like it's just a fun record. Like it doesn't matter what you believe in or anything like that. Like I think anyone who's into pop, punk, rock, just euphoric, upbeat music can get into this.
Yeah,
What was the thought process, I guess, sort of forming the blueprint of how this thing was going to sound?
yeah. I mean, sonically speaking, I just wanted it to represent the fun that I always felt about my own personality and my own self, but I kind of tamped down because I was in the closet so long. So the fact that it's happy and jubilant is kind of exactly how I felt after I came out of the closet. So I want
Nice.
the sound to represent that feeling that I've had ever since. And there's some people who kind of were like, "Oh, if you call the album Gay and Proud, are you worried you're going to alienate listeners who aren't gay?" And my whole thing was like, there's a lot of people who eat tacos who aren't Mexican, so why not why not
I
call the
mean, that's true. Listen, I'm not gay. I love the record. So, I mean, that kind of defeats the point right there. And to go back to one thing you just said was like, as far as the sound goes, I can't imagine putting out a record with this album title and it being like a melancholy, dreary album. Like, sure, you absolutely could have gone that way, but if you had, I would have been like, I don't know. I don't know about that.
yeah.
The tone is perfect.
I wanted it to look up, and even like the whole record kind of follows an arc of like life in the closet, knowing things about myself but not admitting them, and then getting to a point where I could finally tell someone, and then feeling the feelings of freedom, and then you know, uh, and it goes on and on. And like a song called "You Don't Even Know Who I Am" is probably the most, the saddest, most depressing song on the record, but you would never know it to listen to it because it's just
Sure.
so beat and dancy and fun, but it's really all about me and my struggles in the closet and getting to the point of just feeling like I couldn't possibly go on living the way I was. So
Right.
listen to the record and it just plays through like a fun dancey jam. So
I
that's
agree.
what I
And
to be.
through
I wanted it to
yeah,
take negatives.
absolutely. Through my listen of it, that song in particular did stand out because of the lyrics. But listen, like I can't put myself in your shoes. However, I can only imagine that, at least speaking on that song, it's not all sunshine, obviously. Like you spend a lot of time not being out, therefore people don't know who you are. So if every song was peppy and positive and just optimistic, I think it might feel a little off. If you don't go down a little bit at the same time juxtaposing the sound, then not that it doesn't come off insincere, it just doesn't feel maybe true to yourself and your experience.
Right, because it only really tells one side of the story that way.
Exactly.
I wanted to really, it's a coming out record, so I wanted
Yeah,
every facet of my the inner workings of my mind to
sure.
come off. So, I think I achieved that.
I would say so, 100%. Um, I also want to know, what do you find was more difficult here? Was it actually writing the lyrics or composing the instrumentation?
Well, on past records I've done, I've needed a lot of help doing the instrumentation, and
Yeah,
with this record, just as I've gotten more comfortable with playing like demos myself, I really wrote most of the music on this as well as the words all by myself. So it's really, the most Marc Ambrosia record yet, for not only because I'm finally out, but I'm doing more of the heavy lifting in terms of not only writing the lyrics, but writing the music as well. So I think more of my personality comes through lyrically and musically, and more
Sure.
of my abilities as a musician are at the forefront on this record than any of the others before. So as far as which one was harder, um, yeah, I think I don't know. I think they were it kind of seamlessly happened, because I never really intended to write a coming out record per se. But once I wrote the song "Gay and Proud," I'm like, there might be something more here, and I just allowed myself to go down that road and write that
Nice.
story. So,
Um, I think when, obviously we're living in an age where people release single after single to draw attention to themselves and then ultimately release the album. And then when you actually get to the album experience, for me at least, the most important part is the opener. It's the
yeah.
song that's going to draw you in. It's the song that kind of is like, do I keep listening? Like, did I like what I hear? And the opener here does a great job of doing that, and for some reason, it feels like an opener. It literally feels like you're walking in the door and you're walking down a long hallway to the rest of the songs.
Oh,
When you were writing that song in particular, did you always envision it as being the opener?
hmm. I think lyrically, it definitely seemed like a good launching point.
Okay,
'Cause very declarative, Um, but the demo of that song, so I wrote the melody in my head, but I didn't actually um, record a demo of it. It was just sort of like an a cappella demo I did, and then my brother-in-law Steve Lacastro helped me write the music to it. But the demo we did was a little bit more kumbaya acoustic guitar sounding, and I
sure,
wanted to
sure.
give it,
Yeah,
gravitas. And so then when I went into the studio with it, I got in with my engineer Eric McNellis and said, "Look, I really want to punk rock this thing up a little bit."
yeah.
And it just kind of came together and worked. And once we had that, those great electric guitar parts in there, it just kind of became this. The song itself emerged, and
Totally.
I knew right away. I'm like, that is an opening statement right there.
1,000%. Because when I clicked play for the first time, not that I wasn't expecting it, but I guess I was just sort of taken aback by like, oh damn, like this is a pop punk rock statement of a song, and it really comes at you in a warm and inviting way. And again, something that is just like, I like what I heard, I'm going to keep listening. Not something that is like, hey, we're gonna ramp up to the climax here. You start out very high and it stays that high, but again, at the same time, not to harp too much, but like you have something that makes people want to continue to listen. Uh, and then the rest of the record is still has tons of pop sensibility. Not that the punk rock parts take a back seat, but there's really just like an oomph in the opener that's like, hey, I'm Mark, I'm here, listen to me. And it's awesome.
That's what I wanted the
Yeah,
opener.
right.
Uh, it's one of those things where I think the record has it, like you said, it has a lot of sensibilities. There's kind of pop R&B slanted stuff, and then there's the punk rock stuff. Um, all of my records have really been hybrids in a certain sense, and
Yeah,
I feel like this one is probably the strongest of all of them because it it somehow manages to capture essences of all those different genres all at once, in every
exactly. Right. And again, like just where we are in the world with production and mixing and mastering and all that stuff, like people aren't just making pop records or rock records. You're able to pull so much influence, not only in what you listen to, but just like the actual capability of making music. And that's another thing that I like about this record is that it's not just one thing, but you manage to bring it together to really create a cohesive record, which is really difficult to do when you're doing so much. Um, I
Yeah,
mean, listen, like I much prefer the album experience over the single to single listen to give it real context. And when you listen from start to finish, you're like, I heard a lot of different things, but I never thought that I wasn't listening to a different artist or album.
yeah. Yeah, you never wanna feel like you're listening to a compilation of multiple artists. You wanna feel like
Yeah,
come to the end of a true artistic journey, you know, and I think
exactly.
the artistic journey is one that, it's not just a straight hall, it's a hall with many doors, and you have to go through each one to get the full scope of the endeavor.
I agree. Was there a song or collection of songs that you found really difficult to finish up?
Hmm, um, not per se. I mean, I guess the title track, "We Are Who We Are," and,
Mhm.
a song called "Brooklyn," those were some later ones that I had written, and, like I said, those were more a cappella demos, that I had, so I didn't play the instruments in, like, GarageBand and then send it out to the
Sure.
guy in the band. It was just like,
Right.
"So it was created, the world in 7 days,"
Right.
and so it wa those were involved more, starting from scratch once we were actually in the studio, um, but, so I would say if anything was hardest, it was probably those 2 just because it was more of a, starting from the ground level up,
Yeah,
and, I know especially with We Are Who We Are, it was just one of those things where, it's kinda got a weird time signature, so, getting the drum track just right, took a little bit of work, that, we
sure.
were in our heads a little bit on that one. But, other than that, things came together pretty easily. It is my 4th full length now, so I guess I'm starting to get the hang of this a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, that's the cool thing is like as you continue to make music, production catches up. Like we're still advancing in that realm, but you as an artist, you're always learning new things. You take what you learned in the past and you apply it to the future. And that's kind of the cool thing of growing as an artist is, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's always something new. Um, was there an artist or a band that you had in the back of your mind while you were crafting this record?
So there were records in the back of my mind while crafting this record.
Sure.
More um uh Patty Griffin put out a phenomenal record in 1998 called Flaming Red, and
Cool.
there had a lot of like punk and pop influence on that, and I loved that. Um, Amy Ray of the Indigo Girls, she put out like 3 or 4 different solo albums in the early 2000s that were all sort of punk influenced, and I loved those. And then there's just I've always been influenced by pop and R&B music, and so I feel like combining those two genres has been something I've always loved doing and have probably done most consistently throughout my recording career. And
Nice.
I think a song like "You Can Tell Me" is a perfect example of that pop and R&B fused together. I would say even "Willingly and Unafraid" is probably another one.
Sweet.
So yeah, there were definitely records in my mind as I was making this record, and those records in my head that I was hearing were kind of uh, half punk pop and then half R&B pop. So
Right. And that's okay. Listen, because listen, you can't make music without having influences. There's no such thing as a person with a blank slate.
yeah,
People are always pulling from some things, but as long as you make it sound original and innovative, and that's truly all that matters.
that's exactly right. I will
Very
say
cool.
I guess when I'm thinking back, when I was writing the song "Gay and Proud," I was listening to a lot of Stephen Stills at the time,
Okay.
and just it's amazing what he can do with the word "do." So he's called "Sweet,"
Okay.
and in the end, it ends with "do do 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 do," and he's got a couple other songs, and it's just so many ways he does the do's. It's like he makes that one silly dumbass word so catchy.
Just stuck in your head, and it's
So
so right.
so that's where we get the do 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 at the throughout
Nice.
the crowd. So so he was in my head a little bit too making this record, and definitely when I was recording the vocals because I love his vocal style. It's just very uh he's described himself in interviews as having like a a dump truck type voice, if that makes any sense at all. When he's
Doesn't. Also,
so if you listen to his records, you'll probably, yeah, he does kind of have a dump truck voice, but it just works. It's like a really
okay.
visceral. And so when I was recording vocals on a couple of these songs, I was channeling a little bit of that. I think there's definitely some of that in Brooklyn, and a lot of like the ad lib stuff in One Together is kind of cool.
Sure.
So he was definitely crossing my mind making this record too.
Very cool. Um, Obviously, you said this is your fourth full-length album. What are some things that you've taken from past experiences that you've kind of used to streamline your process of making music?
Well, a few years ago, obviously, when we had the pandemic, it forced me into doing a lot of remote recording, and
Yeah,
so it's just kind of been one of those things that once you learn how to do it, you just kind of stick with it because
sure.
it overheads down, and you're never like on a clock, and you
Yeah,
can just send files out to the band, and they can all do their parts at their leisure. And there's something about that um, sometimes when you're in the studio on the clock, you, you don't necessarily get to your best ideas. You get to an idea that sounds really good, and all right,
sure.
chicken. So let's go down this road. Whereas when you're just at your home studio by yourself, you have all the time in the world, and you can keep tinkering with things and going back to it until it really feels like, this is the part. So I think the whole home recording thing has really helped. So there were elements on this record that I recorded here at my house. All of the drums were done at my drummer's house, Rick Eddy. And I think the only things I really did in the actual like legit recording studio were my vocals, and we recorded the song "Beginning to Breathe Again" live in the studio.
Cool. Yeah, and that's the thing is like obviously the pandemic sucked for so
Yeah.
many reasons. We don't need to talk about it. But as far as music goes, we have gotten some incredible art from it.
Oh
It
yeah.
streamlined processes. Ultimately, it's kind of it forced artists and bands to make things easier on themselves. And you've benefited. So it all works for the future. And if it works for you now, hopefully you can continue to kind of be better at it in the future, whatever that brings. Um, yeah,
A lot about, at least for me, valuing the simple things that you tend to overlook every day. When I was home during the pandemic, it was so fascinating that like I could watch like the change of seasons actually play out in nature in real time. And that kind of inspired a song I wrote years ago called "The Enormity of Trees and the Essence of Rain," because you realize those things you take for granted. And so I think if I didn't have the pandemic, I may not have wrestled through some of the um, internal conflicts in my head that ultimately led
absolutely.
out and hence making this record. So
Right.
pandemic opened my world in a way.
Totally. Have you gotten the opportunity to perform any of these songs live yet?
Not quite. There was a tiny little parade festival something in my hometown here in Jersey a few months back, and I did play that with my brother-in-law who played piano on this record and wrote
Sweet.
some of the parts with me. So we previewed a couple of the songs at that gig, and the songs were really warmly received. So that was really refreshing and exciting. But I don't play out live much these days.
That's okay. You don't need to. You can, and it might happen.
Yeah.
But when you do, hypothetically in the future, is there one song off this record that you're most looking forward to playing in a live setting?
I think "Gay and Proud," honestly,
Sweet.
would one that I went to my first Pride Fest this year back in
Sweet.
June.
Where at?
It was in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Cool.
It was recommended that maybe next year I could perform there.
Totally.
That I would love to just go do a bunch of pride fests, just
I mean, that's the target audience ultimately,
can't ask
but
for
yeah,
space, and
truly.
it might just be cool to do, like line up a bunch of pride gigs, and just tour for the month of June every year or something. I don't know.
Dude, actually, that would be amazing. You could go from city to city everywhere.
Mhm. And just like literally just play the record. It's like, hey
Yeah,
everybody, I'm proud and this is my album, and bam, right into
it
it.
speaks for itself. Get ready to have the best time of your life.
I mean,
Amazing.
pride better watch out. Here I come.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, we're only what, like 10 months away, so you can start planning now. Who knows? Sweet. I have a couple more questions for you. I
Right.
want to know, obviously you've been so busy this year with rolling this record out and doing everything else. Do you have plans for the final third of it?
Um, Putting it out, you mean?
I mean, yeah, obviously the record by the time this comes out, it will be out, but what's the plan from now until the new year?
Really just to promote this record really hard and make sure that it gets to the
Sweet.
ear hear it. Um, in any possible way I can. I just want to make sure that these songs uh, get to the ears that need to hear them. I am excitedly working on a couple music videos for some of these songs, so it's going to be a lot of fun to shoot videos again. I haven't done that since pre-pandemic, so I'm
Sweet.
looking forward to that.
Cool. And then basically my last one here is like, obviously this record holds a lot of personal meaning to you, that goes without saying, but I think once people get their ears on it, they're really going to learn about you and maybe even learn about themselves. So what is something that you'd want to tell someone who's about to click the play button on it?
Um, don't be afraid to step into the person who you always wanted to be, but maybe never allowed yourself to be, and cheer other people on who are doing the same.
Beautiful, concise, excellent. Mark, it was so great getting to talk to you again. I always appreciate our conversations, but before we wrap up here, please let me plug this thing for you. For
Oh,
anyone who doesn't know who I'm talking to, this is Marc Ambrosia. The record is called Gay and Proud. We will have the links so you can listen and share and follow along. And truly, like from the bottom of my heart, like I'm happy for you that this thing is out in the world. I can't imagine how you feel internally that it is. And I sincerely hope we get to speak again soon.
me as well, Austin. Thank you so much. I always appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right. Have an amazing rest of your day. Stay cool out there, and I'll talk to you later.
Bye. Thank
See
you,
you
everybody.
later. All right. Bye bye.